Heyo, hey Greg. All right. The theme song's so short now that I can just sort of let it play out entirely. But I, despite the energy not really matching the tone of the arc, I really do like the new song a lot. It's like funny to me how it doesn't match up. It's just so peppy. But and you know, not to date the stream to when I'm making it too much, because I like it to be sort of evergreen in a way. But I also find it funny that the Andor Season 2 trailer came out recently and also had music that just drastically does not seem to fit the tone of the show. So we beat them to the punch on that one by a couple weeks. Anyway, so the audience participation reminder here is there a moment in Parahumans that you find more bananas than he's pregnant with his dead teammates? Because for me, that's like an all-timer. Like, I gotta say. I think that line catches a lot of people off guard. But it also lends a lot of credence to Taylor's fear that Greg in story may have come up to her and told her something like, "I've eaten your hair and become pregnant with your baby." So, yeah. People can discuss in the audience participation if they so choose. And then for the chapter themes, I didn't write any down. Let me think. I don't know. I'm sure that there are themes that other people can identify in this chapter, but it kind of, I guess the murder escalation counts as your classic escalation, because by the end of this chapter, Cape, who that we've met as an ally, is just insta-killed. And you know, it's very Red Shirt from Star Trek. He has a couple lines of dialogue. He's characterized for 5 seconds, and then they kill him off to show how serious things are. So yes, escalation of murder. But yeah, just sort of getting into the chapter. Taylor's still sort of viewing the battle, and Eidolon and Alexandria have things covered for a moment. They're sort of attacking in like rhythm, and then you know, Behemoth is still able to keep moving forward slowly, and apparently is, you know, as always, adapting each time, so is getting a little closer to the headquarters they're on again. So the command center headquarters thing is the same building where Chevalier and Tattletale had been attacked by Cody, by Perdition even. And so the building is a government building and had locked itself down when it was attacked, but then probably due to Behemoth like shorting everything out, they can't get it to unlock to like send people downstairs through the building. So they're stuck on the roof, and people are trying to like fly off individual capes and stuff, but they have way too many, and they need to get them all sort of down quickly. So Taylor takes a moment to um, like get over to that roof, but there's a bunch of lightning bolts and so forth. Um, uh, but Taylor's trying to do what she can by making like swarm clones. Her team is acting to fight Behemoth. Apparently, Golem's range is very far from him, so he's like constantly making stone hands and metal hands and crap to block shots and whatever he can do and stop Behemoth's feats, probably. Those damn feet. They've got Hoyden on the roof, as well as like a bunch of force field people, and they're all trying to block things, but people are still getting lightninged down at an alarming pace. And other people on her team, Tecton's like creating fissures that hopefully are going all the way to sort of cut off the stomps Behemoth is doing. Break up the ground so it's not as effective when he's just walking. Annex is making like bridges with his sort of slurpy power where he can move materials around. They mentioned Dispatch. His power is pretty cool. I'll talk about him in the power section, I think. But Dispatch is saving wounded people. Revel is there. Revel's got, she's able to block shots kind of in a similar fashion to Hoyden, but with her big lantern power. And then once she blocks lightning shots, she can sort of retaliate attack by sending out a thing from her lantern. So that's cool too. So this is all happening, and they're trying to tie up Behemoth as we keep sort of referring back to. But whenever Behemoth gets a spare moment, he just fires more lightning at the command center roof. So let's see here. Yeah, Taylor tells everybody to take cover, but Behemoth starts roaring, so he's got like a sound attack, and Taylor's like, damn, if only we had Gru. We don't have anybody who can block the sound. She tries to put up a bug swarm between her and the sound, but I gotta say, I think that probably did literally nothing, if I'm being honest. But yeah, people are just like keeling over from their organs liquefying and stuff if they're too close to Behemoth. Unless they're like super durable. I bet Eidolon's not really having a problem with it because of his, power stacking and whatever. But Taylor's worried Citrine got killed, although she did not, as we'll, learn in future. Taylor thinks back to Tag and how he gave her that extra rating and all the stuff, and that's when she's like, what can I do to use my power set to save this situation, given my extreme versatility? And she comes up with an idea to create zip lines from the top of the command center to the ground so that people can ride down and escape at much faster velocity than when flying capes can show up. Especially because some of the flying capes are probably getting lightninged out of the air. If we're being really real about it. So yeah, she sets down. She starts getting accosted by these European capes who are speaking Portuguese at her. I guess we don't know they're European, but they seem to be. Very light-skinned and yelling in Portuguese. But let's see here. They're trying to get her to fly them down because they saw her set down on the roof with a flight pack, but she's trying to tell them that she can't fly off with someone else because the flight pack isn't strong enough. She almost starts getting into a fight with them because they're like trying to grab onto her and stuff, being weird. And then Arbiter shows up, and Arbiter has like the social thinker power as well as those like force fields and stuff. But she's got like a kind of a spread power. But apparently part of her power is to be able to learn a language in like 3 exchanges, which she does. And she's the one who tells us it's Portuguese. But I find this I find this new information about Arbiter's power to be really cool. Like this is like a really dope minor power. It's not like some speaks all languages innate thing. It's like you learn the language that the person is speaking to you, which is really cool. Because then it doesn't matter what dialect they have. You'll be like learning that dialect. But let's see here. More background behemoth stuff. Buildings are constantly toppling. Even though he's still just doing the roaring, he didn't even like walk into a building. Taylor's actually worried that the building below them is just going to crumble from the noise, but luckily that doesn't end up happening. But Taylor's checking the interior of the building, trying to find Tattletale. She's confused why she's not anywhere. And then, once Arbiter's able to translate, and for Taylor, it feels like it's taking forever, even though it's so quick. Once she's able to translate, we get this classic moment. I don't quite understand. There's a gap in translation, but he says he's pregnant with his dead teammates. And then they're asking for him to be rescued next. And then Taylor, of course, in italicized text to her own thoughts, says, "Pregnant with dead teammates?" Suddenly the little faces on his armor seemed twice as creepy. I really hoped it was a tragically bad translation. Parahumans can be so fucked up sometimes. And yet, here I am thinking, oh man, that's great. He's going to be able to rescue his teammates who got killed. But yes, Taylor says that there's no way to prioritize, etc. But she secures the silk lines. She starts explaining the plan to Arbiter, and then Arbiter seems like really dubious of this. But I mean, I don't know. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Behemoth is about to be here. We need to zipline off the damn building. And Arbiter says you're not convincing me, but also is the first to send people down the line. But let's see here. They're sending people down these lines, these silk lines, but then one of them is like too heavy, and snaps the line. Arbiter is able to use a force field at range and keep him from getting too hurt, but it breaks one of their 6 cords, so they only have 5 lines going. So they go from 6 at a time almost right away down to 5 at a time off the roof. And while they're dumping people through the zip lines, they're having a conversation. before that one gives way, Taylor's like, "Thank you for keeping this sane. If it comes down to it and the cords don't hold, I'll lend you my flight pack. I can control it remotely." And then Arbiter's all, "Give it to someone else before you give it to me," because they're all. She's so hero coded. But Taylor starts asking about the stairs, and this is when we get filled in on the whole thing about it being a government building, and that the rogue cape attacked and took down Chevalier, etc. And then she asks about Tattletale. Arbiter doesn't know who that is, but she goes and explains that she would have been with Accord and who that looks like. Arbiter says they were with Chevalier, and that they're with the wounded now, at like a medical center a half mile away. They say it's far enough away that Behemoth won't be endangering them anytime soon, and I guess that's true in the length of the fight wise, but it's not that far for Behemoth. And then at this point, their conversation is broken up because Behemoth does a big shockwave that breaks down some of their Tinker force fields and stuff. And then some Tinker lady runs up to try and restart the force field and gets blasted right away. And then they send another group down the lines. There's only 11 people left on the roof. It helps that they keep getting picked off as far as these numbers go. Anyway, she has to cut one of the lines because she thinks it's too dangerous to use. So there's 4 left. So Arbiter's trying to send her along. Classic line. If you want to ship Tattletale and Taylor, is that go to your friend, your teammate, your partner, whatever she is to you. She's important. But then Taylor rejects the ship. You need me. I can use my bugs to check the lines are okay. But yes, she stays to check the lines. I'll stay. Tattletale's important to me, but so is doing what I can here. I can check the lines in a way nobody else here can. And then Arbiter stops arguing and gives the nod. And then Taylor tries to make swarm clones, and Behemoth, even after they've gotten so many people off the roof, Behemoth's still focusing on it. He lightnings it destroys two of her decoys, but also kills a cape. I got distracted by the wording here. Right over Arbiter's squatter force field. And I realize, of course, it means shorter, not that the force field is a squatter. But my brain went the other way for a second. Yeah, so Taylor's damning her lack of knowledge by not having Tattletale to tell her if the decoys are having any effect or if things are just coincidental. Behemoth is getting knocked around a lot because he's continuing to focus on the command center roof, but he doesn't need to care about that for the most part. So Taylor's wondering why he's sticking with the same strategy for so long and not changing up tactics as often. But I mean, I guess he still went back and forth between the sound and the lightning. It's not like he's totally static. But anyway, so they're finally all getting down. I mean, they're on the roof for the last moment. It's just Arbiter and Taylor up there, and Weaver even. But she directs Arbiter to the best line and sends her down. They don't wait for the heat to dissipate all the way, and Taylor is like hovering down with her in case the zip line breaks. She doesn't think she can actually carry them both to the ground, but they'd at least have the lift that's good enough for one so that they didn't get, splatted at the ground or whatever. Rhyme is up there fighting, and Taylor sends word to Rhyme with bug speak. It takes a couple tries, but she sends word that the command center is evacuated, and then I guess this isn't the time it took multiple. But she tells Rhyme that the command center is evacuated, and Rhyme orders them to stagger a retreat, and then Arbiter sends Taylor to go find Tattletale. She's able to use the full wings, the more delicate parts, as she gets further away from the fighting because there's less static electricity in the air, and so she's able to go at full speed and get to the temple where they're making the medical center. It's terrible, burns, crushed limbs, all sorts, smoke inhalation, of course, and then she finds Tattletale, and Tattletale has a tube sticking out of her throat because she's been, properly intubated rather than just having a pen trach. The most fun tracheotomy, a pen. But let's see here. Taylor's first words to her are, "You really gotta stop doing this." And then Tattletale grins at her. On a notepad, she's written, "He's going easy on us, all Endbringers are, but Behemoth holding back, even from moment he arrived, taking more hits than he should." Taylor says they already know that. The next note is telling her that it seems like they're setting themselves up to fail, but that they do have stuff that they're going towards. Despite all the damage Leviathan did, it seems like he was going after Noel when he was in Brockton Bay, and it seems as though Behemoth is going after another target, not India Gate, something either powers related or whatever. And we kind of know from the end of this chapter that it's probably Fierce, but one of the speculations from what's his name, Balance Thinker, Kismet, is that he thinks it could be a nuclear weapons stockpile or something, which is a reasonable guess, because if a bunch of nuclear bombs went off, that wouldn't be good. And they've talked about how Behemoth has gone for a nuclear power plant before, so yeah. And then apparently one of the times he had gone for the bird cage, but he hadn't actually emerged near the bird cage, and they had been able to fight him off. So it's as long as there's enough resistance and enough mounted damage, the Endbringers will be okay, you've won this time. Even though we know, Leviathan was mostly faking being injured and, heals. They heal way faster than the initial assumptions Tattletale makes. When they talk about the Endbringers a long time ago, she says, you could use a nuclear bomb on Leviathan, but he'd heal eventually. It might take him a year, but it's I don't think it would actually take him a year. I think that Leviathan might be up in an hour from a nuclear bomb, maybe less. Because the further in that the damage goes, not only the less it does, but the more quickly it heals. So, I don't know. I just don't know. Um, um, but, anyway, back to the chapter, not getting distracted. So Taylor asks what she can do about this, and then, Tattletale says that she can try and find the real target so that they can actually figure out, like, how to counter what he's doing. Taylor has a moment where she worries because Tattletale also tells her Cord's dead, but she can't get distracted by that right now. And then Tattletale had asked for a computer. Taylor doesn't think anything's going to work around here because the armbands barely worked and they're like hardened technology. Tattletale's mad, so she writes the word fuck in all capital letters and traces over them several times. Taylor says, okay, maybe I'll get you a cell phone. We'll see what happens. And then, Greg says, it's like hitting an angel with an N2 mine. It might buy some time, but don't expect too much. Yeah, exactly. It's just like that, like first or second episode of Evangelion, where it's like, we used the biggest, best conventional weapon that we have, and it made it hunker down for a half hour or whatever. But yeah. So Taylor says that she's gonna try and get her a phone or whatever if she can. But Tattletale's like, all right, just head out, find the objective, use the swarm to search. You can really help on this. Taylor points out that there are other capes searching for this, and like so will Kismet in a minute. But then we keep getting reminded they're all searching at India Gate, and Tattletale thinks that Behemoth's target is further north than that, and that they're not searching in the right location. So yeah, Tattletale's last two notes are, get help then, but you can use swarm. Search. We win by this by denying him his target. Go already. I get healer another day. Not worried. And then Taylor takes off flying away, and then considers the implications of the availability of superpowered healing, giving them even more superpowered recklessness than they would normally have, and a person like Tattletale nearly getting killed over and over again. And then, I guess one of the themes of this chapter is death, but she thinks, if we died, we were dead, no question, unless I gave consideration to Alexandria's apparent resurrection. But an injury, no matter how grave, that was something that could be remedied. It lent a feeling of invulnerability, an image of invulnerability. So we continued being reckless, and we would continue to be reckless until something finally killed us off. Was there a way to break the pattern? Actually, I'm just going to keep reading this section for a moment. Could I afford to? My ability to throw myself headlong into a dangerous situation was part of the reason for my success. Yeah, I really like how she's like able to identify that she has problems, but is also like, but I need these problems because they're kind of also my strength. Like as much as people say you shouldn't like X, but if I didn't X, I wouldn't win. It's very Taylor to be self-aware, but just be like, but I've got to keep doing it. I mean, even the wording of the next sentence I really like. Right after she says, my ability to throw myself headlong into a dangerous situation was part of the reason for my success. I looped back toward the main confrontation. I I think that's really good right there. Yeah, so the thinkers and tinkers are kind of like trying to figure out what they're doing. Some of them are just fleeing and helping allies. Some of them seem to be trying to make another command center, and Taylor just sort of moves up to probably the two closest capes she can move up to, and she asks if they speak English. One of them does. And then he's Kismet, balanced thinker, he says. And then he's wearing a white robe with a hard, faceless mask that only has slits for eyes. So he's very indistinct, I guess. And then... oh, there's 3 capes, rather. Sorry. And then he says that the 2 who don't speak English are Fathom and Particulate. He can speak Punjabi, but not well. Asking about their powers, we get displaces people or things to another dimension filled with water and brings them back. And then a dust tinker. And Taylor thinks to herself, what the fuck is a dust tinker, or a balance thinker for that matter? But she doesn't have time to ask these kinds of questions. So she says she's going to find others. She needs to get people together for a mission to find what Behemoth is here for. When Kismet says, we've got others on that, that's when Taylor says they're searching in the wrong place. You're sure he's after something? They've attacked cities just to kill people before, and this is a dense population center. He's after something. He's got a direction, and a friend told me he's targeting a point beyond where the heroes are searching. We'll help look. And then he translates for the other 2 capes, enough for them to agree. And then they take out... Taylor gets him to give his phone, and then he gets like kind of exasperated when he wants to keep it, but he accepts. In an Endbringer fight, a lot of things go out the window. You wouldn't normally give Taylor your phone, but in an Endbringer fight, you just give Taylor your phone. It's fine. And then Taylor doesn't know what they're looking for, but just something. And boop, 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 boop. Oh yeah, he had also handed, or he also has some sort of scanning device, and then he's going to hand one to Taylor so that they can sort of triangulate. But, he also thanks Taylor for the escape route on the roof, and then despite also thanking people in other S-Class situations, including the Leviathan fight, and I think this fight, Taylor doesn't respond to him to say anything and thinks, I might be being rude, but I had to save time right now. It's just so funny sometimes. She has such double standards. She's like, does an exact thing and then is like, thinks to herself, ugh, who would do that exact thing? So dumb. Making me wait while he thanked me was similarly dumb. Taylor, you're so bad. Anyway, Taylor, bug relays the phone to Tattletale, and then also gets in range of Rhyme, and then explains to Rhyme, and this is the one that does take 2 tries, but explains to Rhyme that Tattletale thinks that she has a lead on Behemoth's objective, and that Taylor is mobilizing thinkers to find it. Rhyme acknowledges by saying good, and then leaves her to it. Doesn't have time to focus on this. All these, like, Protectorate capes who are, like, team leaders and stuff, the Endbringer fights are when we get to see them really shine, because however much they might get like punked by villains sometimes, a lot of these people are badasses when they're going all out, and like the reason they lose is because they're trying to not murderize the person they're fighting. But if they were just going and blasting, it'd be a different story. um, like, I think a big part of the Undersiders' success is the fact that they actually don't warrant as much counterforce, retribution force, whatever, as a lot of other like villains might. So they aren't getting picked off by super high level people. That's why it's like such a disaster when Alexandria actually shows up, because it's like they're used to having like very medium level like heroes trying to pick them up, whereas in a way it's always people super pulling their punches unless it's villains, and that's why they can have a breather when they're fighting some of the heroes, as silly as that sounds, because they're still in a big, super fight. But anyway, I'm getting way distracted. So they're all fighting Behemoth. Behemoth's still going nuts. Taylor's thinking to herself how, Golem and other people are still creating a cover, etc. And there's this big sort of shockwave, etc., giving Behemoth time to walk forward and use his kill aura. From a distance, Taylor's sensing that, like, Rachel's out there and the dogs are just grabbing people in their mouth and running away and dropping them, running back to the battlefield. Repeat. There's a moment here where one of the dogs gets struck by lightning and is not able to, like, tell that the cape it was saving was also lightninged and is dead, and just keeps the routine up. A lot of flavor going on. Tecton is putting up barriers. Annex is reinforcing anything that people are using as footing or whatever, and fixing other people's barriers. I think this is cool because, like, Taylor thinks about how much Annex is helping. Like, I mean, the exact line is, Annex was reinforcing everything, fixing other people's work, providing loose cover for ranged heroes to hide behind, and delaying collapses. Powerful. I know she had just mentioned Tecton as well, but it feels like she's just taking a moment to acknowledge Annex is powerful, even though his power is one of those ones that seems weak as well. She didn't take as much time to, like, think about that in terms of, I don't know, some of the real heavy hitters out on the field. So it's cool that she acknowledges defensive utility. Grace is carrying off Wounded because she's super strong, so she can just, like, pick them up, Wanton was using his telekinetic form to sort of bypass dangerous debris, turning back into a human to help wounded people that were trapped and stuff. Says Cuff was helping a tinker, those damn tinkers. And then, Golem's doing his thing, endlessly forming barriers against Behemoth's legs and stuff. It's kind of amazing that Behemoth doesn't kill off someone like Golem, but I guess that Golem's staying at a huge range and stuff, and doesn't actually need to have any line of sight to feel Behemoth, because he can feel the materials getting crushed up, so he can have a pretty perfect sense, like Toph style, but at range, of where Behemoth's stomping around, and then just continually grab at him. That's pretty damn cool. If Leviathan was here, he would specifically snipe Golem. I just feel it in my bones. It's like how he intentionally murdered Shielder and Bastion and all those defensive folks. But Taylor's about to leave, but she's giving orders to her group as one final set. She says, Tecton, Pits, have Annex cover them. Think controlled collapses. And so that's cool, having Behemoth fall into Pits. And then she puts him in charge until she gets back. She says she has other orders. And then she leaves. She says that there's a handful of thinkers and tinkers here, and then tells them that they need to search north, and then doesn't wait. She just starts moving off north herself to also search. She thinks herself, how many capes had he killed? How many more would die? Which is a good question. I feel like we never get figures for this battle exactly in the same way we do for Leviathan. For Leviathan, we have an almost perfect count. It's like, there were about 200 capes, and I think 46 of them died. Like, something like that. And it's much more specific than this fight where I don't know, loads of people died, tons of them. A whole bunch? One entire bunch? A whole entire another. But yeah, this is when she finds Particulate and Kismet again, and Kismet hands her a scanner from, I think, Particulate, and then even if it's not from him, the three of them each have one. And at least I think so. Boop, 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 boop. It says, we were triangulating, or did we not have a third? Kismet was out of my range somewhere at present, as was Fathom, so I couldn't be sure. I think they're triangulating, but I'm not sure. The bars are a mystery to Taylor. She has, she can point it at Behemoth and tell that there's a lot from Behemoth, but generally doesn't know what it means. And she's moving and looking around for things, and she finds something really big that tops out the bars, even though Behemoth didn't top out the bars. And then she senses an underground chamber, and then the other two catch up to her, Kismet and Particulate, and then they're not sure how to get in at first, and then Particulate uses a tinker gun that, like, just blam, it sort of creates a tunnel. Apparently it only has 3 shots. He had tried to use it against Behemoth, but it hadn't done anything. I like this. Battery is dead. 3 shots. Tried 2 on Behemoth. Didn't work. He likes that it was useful. Damn, I said. If they had worked. Or if they had worked. Yeah. Just to cut a big rent directly through Behemoth. That would have been great. And you'd think it might work on Behemoth because he's like a crystalline entity, basically. But the problem is that he pretty much has Manton protection in both directions, the same way that Weld does, where he's protected from stuff that affects biological stuff and non-biological stuff, seemingly. So, bummer. But Particulate seems, like, hilarious. I wish this character was around more because, like, it doesn't seem like this is out of the norm for him to just, like, I'm gonna blast a tunnel, and then I'm gonna throw my gun like a bomb, and, like, just do these things. And I know that it would be terribly annoying and hard to deal with in real life, but as a story character, that's a lot of fun. He's like a Jason Mendoza. If he has a problem, he throws a Molotov cocktail at it and has a different problem. Yeah. So yeah, they go down this this tunnel thing, and they find this undercity. Taylor's, like, figuring out what's down here. They sense behind a wall, like, tons and tons of energy, and when asking how much, then Kismet describes it as more than Behemoth has given off during his entire stay in New Delhi. And then Taylor says there's no way in, and then you know, this is when Particulate decides that it's time to sort of set up the gun that's out of battery as a bomb, and then tosses it in the corner, and then starts running. I find this part incredibly funny. Like, to cut the tension and have, like, this much humor in this moment is delightful. It started flashing rapidly, increasingly bright, and Particulate bolted. It was almost comical, as though he'd been taught to run by a textbook. His hands were out flat at his sides, his arms and legs bent at rigid right angles as he sprinted away, almost robotic in his movements. He shouted something in Punjabi. Almost comical. When you saw a bomb disposal team running, as the joke went, you ran to keep up. The same applied to any tinker and a device that flashed like that. Kismet and I ran after him. So, yes, I love that. And then it sort of, much like it destroyed the carved out the tunnel earlier, there's no, like, projectile or light or heat. It just, like seemingly matter destroys in some way an area around it, and cuts a hole into the room they couldn't access with all the power in it. With all the strange energies, as Star Trek would say. But they don't find some Landru back here. They find a famous and terrifying Cold Cape, Fierce, someone who, even though he's a Cold Cape, Kismet knows on sight. So he must have had some exploits that uncovered his identity as a Cape earlier. He seems to be a very experienced Cape, as we can see and learn in when we talk to him a bit more. But they go inside, and not only is there this disheveled Cape, as you see here in the art, ooh, but as you also see here in the art, above him there were two golden discs, and something almost alive seemed to crackle between them. I always imagined the discs sort of facing straight on, but they never, this does look like something alive is crackling between them, so I can't fault this there. It just wasn't what I had imagined, but I'm happy with the art for sure, especially with Fierce's haggard face. I love a haggard face. Greg says, sounds like he's pretty bad at being a Cold Cape. Yeah. I mean, in a way, I think being alive for as long as he's been alive is quite impressive. I think he's hitting numbers like where Armsman is at. Like, not dead after being active for like nearly... I think they've both been active for over 15 years. But yeah. Anyway, so yes, this is when Kismet says, "It's Fierce. The glowing thing in the air or the person?" "The person." And then asking who that is, Kismet says, "He's one of the reasons the American Girls PRT can exist. When they talk about disbanding it, the PRT only reminds them that monsters like this lurk elsewhere." So he turns to face them, etc. And then asking for more info. "I've fought monsters. Just tell me what kind of monster he is. The kind that's too smart for all of our good." And then Fierce is like, "Oh, you're complimenting me," and then thanks the guy for the compliment on how he's too smart for everyone's good. And then he recognizes Taylor right off the bat from American television. That's pretty cool. And then she tells him her name is Weaver now. "You had much power. You turned it down." I gotta say, I do want to read all of his lines in an Italian accent. And not even a real Italian accent, like a Brando accent. But anyway. Yeah. I think Fierce should be played by Brando. "I do remember. You had much power. You turned it down." Just vocal acting only. I don't want to see Brando dress up as Fierce. That would be bad. And of course this would be the ghost of Brando because he's dead. Anyway, so she says she's still figuring it out. She took a big leap and she's not sure, but it's fine. She's able to when she talks to Fierce seems to really identify with what she's saying in general. So I find that fun. She comes in the room and he's immediately like, we're the same, you and me, we're buds. He even says about her, "This is to be respected, making hard choice, the challenge of the young adult to find identity." Fierce rules. And then so he she asks what the golden, ominous, glowing thing is, and then he says it's a weapon, and then he does a pun in English. He says it's a time bomb. Kismet explains his power to send things back in time through portals, and then what he's discovered is that he can send light through, but it kind of just compounds and compounds over and over again. And then he just points the exit hole at whatever he wants to hit with his energy weapon, and it scours it. At first he says, "Light will pour forth and clean," and then Taylor says, "I think the word you want is scour." And scour, Fierce agrees, is a better word, and he thanks her. As I'm saying, as soon as Taylor's here, Fierce is like, "We're buds though, right? Kindred spirits, almost." Taylor says that this is what Behemoth is looking to get. And then Fierce says, well, he's trying to get Behemoth with this. And then Kismet is scared and starts flipping out. And Fierce says to stay, but Kismet doesn't say anything. He just runs and then is immediately killed by a teleporter who can break the Manton effect and teleport with his arm going through a dude. And he, he just leaves a big hole in Kismet. So it's a pretty good threat to the other two not to leave. And then Particulate apparently says, he spits an insult at Fierce. He says that he's evil, so Fierce is not going to speak to him any further. And then Fierce explains that he's like, you understand me though, Taylor, the danger we all face from monsters like that and from others. And then Taylor says she doesn't think many top the Endbringers. They have a back and forth. I'm going to read some of their dialogue real quick because there's not much chapter left, but maybe not so, maybe. But you have tried being cold, killing the enemy, yes, because ruthless is only way to win this war. I met some people. I think they were your adversaries. Glowing eyes, reflective like mirrors? Yes, enemy. They petty evils that walk this city. Organized crime, slave, prostitute, murder, mercenary. My side, we root out corrupt, ruthless. Government prefer them to us, paint us as evil, pay them to carry on. But you know what this is like, yes? More or less. And those guys, they're ruthless in the same way you described, I guess? More, less, yes. I thought about this sort of scene and like the fact that we don't ever really learn for sure enough about the Cold Capes to know like what the aims of either side were, but on vibes alone, I like Fierce a lot better than I like the Cat Eyes guy from the other scene. So sometimes you just gotta go on vibes. But I like this Fierce guy. You want to hit Behemoth with this time bomb? But I think that's what he wants. He's holding back. My thinker friend, she says so. He's taking more hits than he should, and I'm just now realizing he might be doing it because he wants to be ready for when you hit him with this. He'll push it out into the ground, or into the air. Yes, this is likely. This is what he may want. I hope for the second or third. This will have to do. They've tried stuff like this before. Nukes, gigantic railguns, tricks with teleportation and portals. It doesn't work. You won't do anything except get a lot of people killed as collateral damage. We timed this. Strategic. Come, step in. Right, I thought. Approach the temporal bomb. But I did. No use taking off the guy with the murder teleporter. So they step into the room, Particulate as well, and they see his television screens. He's got like a bunch of screens showing the battle, and then he's also got a soap opera on. When Fierce is thirsty, the teleporter guy teleports in immediately and brings him a water and then leaves. And then Fierce says that they're watching Behemoth to see when he lets his guard down so that he can strike. And then Taylor says, I've seen an Endbringer fool another brilliant man who thought he had a surefire way to win. They're cleverer than we think. What if Behemoth fools you? And then Fierce says that New Delhi will pay the price, that his daughter is there, and she's with the... He calls them bright heroes, so they evidently don't use the same terminology as Defiant, but she's a hot cape. Maybe he just didn't want to call his daughter a hot cape, which is fair. So she's a bright hero, and a popular one, and he acknowledges that she, and then he'll talk about it as well, other people in his neighborhood people he knows, everyone in his life will die, but that it's worth it for this risk, for the way to, or maybe he doesn't say that here. Maybe that's a further justification in the next chapter. My brain's filling in things from the next chapter. No, but yeah, it's a chance to strike them harder than anything yet. Is it worth risking the city, your daughter, the lives of the heroes? Yes. No. They obviously have different ideas about the situation. But Fierce's not getting mad at her. He's just having a conversation. So this is good for Taylor. He's unhappy, but he's not like I'm not going to talk to you. And then Taylor's worried that when Contessa had mentioned monsters and people with other agendas, that this may have been one of the people. And then she's worried that he thinks that the two of them are kindred spirits, which I think is funny, because they totally are. And he says, I tell you because you are ruthless, Weaver. Do not stop me. I die, focus waver, time bomb explode. Aimless, no direction. Indiscriminate, I supplied. Indiscriminate, Fierce echoed me. India gone. You die, even down here. I raised my head, staring up at the golden discs, and the current that seemed to run between them. I would have thought it would be brighter. And then he says, Hero fall, we wait. When fight cannot be won, I strike. And Taylor looks at the screen. Behemoth is indiscriminately firing lightning. And then he says, very soon, you stay. And then the chapter ends. Oh my god. But, yeah, I love this scene with Fierce, and the scene with Arbiter. And I think Kismet and Particulate are both very delightful side characters. Particulate. Fathom does nothing, and we don't need to know about him. But Particulate and Kismet, like, for basically being one-off characters who are like here and gone in a flash. Yeah, wonderful. Is there other stuff? They continue to have really good, I know I skipped past most of it, but really good background detail on, like, what Behemoth was doing the whole time, what the various forces in Taylor's two teams are doing. It has a continued focus on, like, the big names in the Protectorate, people that Taylor knows, and she's watching them, like, do their thing at, like, the highest level. It's got a lot of really good texture throughout the whole chapter. There's some funny tattletale bits as well. I mean, this chapter's got tons and tons of stuff. It's jam-packed. It's got it all. I am a big fan of this. I do remember listening to, like, We've Got Worm, and I can't remember if it was those guys or, like, the audience, but people have talked about how they were surprised at how sort of not directly in the fight that Taylor is. And it's true that she runs off and does side missions a bunch of times, but we always get to observe the fight. So it's not like we're kind of... I know a lot of things happen while she's not focusing on it, but, like, we get to see some neat fighty stuff. Because, the thing is that as much as it's not always about the fights, if we just wanted a book where people only talked, we probably wouldn't be reading a superhero story. And this fight's pretty cool. So yeah, good chapter in that regard. As far as arc stuff, really good bridging chapter. the previous chapter clearly ended with like, oh, Behemoth's heading for the command center and we need to do something about that, and we know there's this Tattletale, like she was maybe in their problem and stuff. So like Taylor's got these clear goals, like kind of a, at first it's like a goal that the two are aligned, and then they become misaligned goals when she realizes Tattletale isn't at the command center, but she, she's keeps her eyes on the prize and saves the capes that are there. But she's just addressing the problems from the previous episode, so I think these are going well. And then they clearly set the stage of like, okay, so now that we've confirmed Tattletale's fine, she's confirmed that they need to find Behemoth's like real goal that the heroes aren't focused on, and I think that's a really good bridge to get us over the hump into finding like this complex of the other cold capes. It's kind of funny now that I think about it, with it's back to back, like one cold cape facility right to the other, but it doesn't feel rushed. It just feels there's enough bridging material that I think it really works. And, pacing is one of those things that's really hard to judge, but you can just sort of explain the things that you think make the pacing work. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but I guess what I'm saying is I think it worked because she had like two other events that happened between, and then all the like auxiliary fighting that was happening the whole time. So it didn't feel like she was going, oh, she found one cold cape facility, and then 5 minutes later she found the other one. But yeah, I think the pacing on this arc is really good. The indomitability of Behemoth is felt in these chapters. I even like the little stuff, like she can use her like full jetpack when she's far enough away, and so she can feel like the distance that when she puts it between herself and Behemoth, and it's like noticeably different to her. But anyway, moving on from arc stuff, we can clearly see where the thing is headed. It's like this Fierce A conversation will continue on, and we'll see what happens with the time bomb in the next chapter. For characters, it starts off, the first one I wanted to mention, I'm not going to mention everyone who's fighting, because there's like a bunch of people fighting, but they're not like characterized. They're just doing fighty things. I mean, I still think they get little characterization in what they're doing, but yeah. There's a line. So Arbiter, Arbiter's really reliable cape, and she is like one of those true blue heroes who's really focused on like saving everybody and being the last person out. Like she's literally the last person to take the zip line down. And she keeps trying to let Taylor go to find Tattletale, but Taylor keeps insisting on staying. But Arbiter is just so like cool, and I mean, it's a little funny that she's like, "You're not reassuring me," when like Taylor's like, somebody might fall and die, but it's like, I'm kind of with Taylor on this. We just gotta get people off this roof right this second. But yeah, Arbiter, I don't even remember if she has literally any other scenes after this, but I really like her in the like 2-3 chapters she's ever in. Tattletale's in surprisingly good spirits, despite how poorly things are going and how she got her throat crushed, etc. She's still grinning and doing bits like writing "fuck" in all capital letters when she should be saving time. I don't know. She's tattletaling too close to the sun, as always. She barely saved her own life last chapter. Um, or not last chapter, but last chapter she was in. Uh, and she's still grinning her way through. We know when the situation's dire, she's even more likely to smirk. So it really doesn't tell us too much. As far as like Rachel, theoretically the other Undersiders, but she's the one we see. And then all the Chicago wards, we see them on the battlefield. They're all still fighting. They're like seemingly doing a very effective job. They're all on the Rachel's like running to the mid and front lines, but all the rest of them are on the back lines and taking defensive actions because the Chicago wards are like a really powerful defensive utility team. Um, and while they do have offensive power against like other capes, they're fucking useless against Behemoth. So like they're doing their defensive utility thing. And as she mentioned about like Annex, Tecton, Golem, like all incredibly powerful. Grace, less so. She's still able to save wounded. Wanton, definitely less so. He's able to help wounded. But you know, they're all doing their thing. They're keeping at it. They're not wasting a second. And then I didn't mention Cuff, but she's there doing what Grace is doing basically. Although it says she's helping a tinker, which might mean that her metallokinetic ability is actually necessary for on-the-fly building, which would be fun. Who else should we talk about? Kismet and Particulate for sure. Kismet is characterized in such a short amount of time. He seems like a really earnest guy. Gives up his phone even though he's like, I don't want to give up my phone. Are you crazy? I find that moment among a million funny moments. And also, Taylor won't have to worry about getting that phone back to him now. So, he wouldn't have used it anyway. I don't know. Kismet was just, I think he's like interesting in like how kind of, I'm not sure how to read him, but I always sort of took him as being like almost chipper. Which is funny until like things take a turn for the worse in the cave. Maybe I'm just misreading his lines, but he's an comes across in an odd, fun way to me. And then Particulate is like a prankster. I love Particulate. Wish he would get more scenes, but he does not get much screen time either. I feel like Particulate's characterized really well because I feel like I know him already from such a small screen time, so few interactions, and I'm like, I could see this character having like a really fun interlude chapter, or like as a side character on another team, or like Taylor's got to team up with him for a whole arc. Like that'd be great. Oh man, that'd be fun. But alas, poor Particulate. We barely knew him. And we'll finish out with the teleporter cape, who we don't get the name of. He's just some aide, but he's clearly just as willing to grab bottled water as murdering people for Fierce, our boy, who gets his own spot to actually be talked about. Fierce is a great mirror for Taylor because she's like, I'm not like this dude at all. And it's like, you clearly are very like this guy. You are a very big risk, big reward. He is just like you, but worn down with years. Definitely in the same way that like she doesn't want to see the similarities between herself and Alexandria. She also doesn't want to see the similarities between herself and Fierce. But I'm like, it's right there. It's so obvious that he can tell right away. And I don't know. It's, as I've said about many of these people, I love Fierce as a character. I think he's just he's got a really cool power. He's like very charming to me for some reason. Um and he's kind of got dope fashion choices. He's wearing like a blue robe with a gold sash and stuff. Like, I don't know, I think that's cool. Um I wish I had more odd clothes. It's probably not even odd for his society, but I wanna dress like Fierce here in this society. Um. Anyway, Fierce. Oh, I said Fierce was gonna be last, but the real last one is Taylor. We always end on Taylor. Um. Taylor's like mostly keeping it together how she usually does, but is becoming increasingly panicked and worried about the situation with Behemoth, which is fair. It is Behemoth. And she basically decides she's gonna have to like figure this Fierce situation out herself. Which of course Fierce is saying that she'll have to stay, but she talks it through with him, and I don't know. She keeps it cool in a way that I think a lot of others, like as per Kismet, would not, and as per Particulate would not. They each lose their cool in different directions and are not diplomatic in this situation that clearly calls for diplomacy. I guess that's, yeah, an interesting contrast that I hadn't thought of is that each of the three of them has a different reaction, and Taylor's is the only one that kind of works or is helpful here. Well, I don't know. What's to say about Taylor that we haven't already said? She's very nervous about what's about to happen. I want to talk about Powers knowledge and world building. Powers that I skipped over. Dispatch. They describe his power. It's pretty cool. He's got enhanced strength and enhanced durability all the time, but his cool power is that he creates a bubble of sped up time where until the oxygen to breathe in there is expent, he can just keep the bubble up and take as long as he needs in a confined space to take somebody out. But what he uses it for a lot as a hero is to do this sped up time, and during the course of a fight, like do a bunch of first aid on someone and then get them into shape to be moved, and then release his time bubble, and then in like a split second they are able to be evacuated from an area. So pretty good, pretty cool power. It's one of the ones that really inspires me. Like, this would actually be incredibly good in real life for so many things. Like, to have the ability to just, like, I don't know, compress time and do something. Like, even just for basic stuff. Like, if you just use that to have way more time in your life than other people, like I know you would still be, like, chewing up your own life, but you could read a book in like these little spurts and like be handed the book, take all this time to read through the whole thing, and only have taken like a few minutes of everybody else's time, and be like, okay, so da 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 da. And like, I don't know, in terms of like being a protectorate member, he could like read all the case files on a cape and then give his team a bunch of like the lowdown on their enemies while they're like getting to the battlefield, because he's like read everything and has like determined what's important. So, man, he's just got so much utility potential in like every direction. He's awesome. Revel is like one of those Japanese lantern ghosts, and when the lantern is struck with lightning, then it will wow. It will fire retaliatory light spheres, and as I recall, boop. It says that they drifted to Behemoth and began to cut into his torso and groin area. So it's obviously doing enough damage that Behemoth cares and like moves, but impressive. You can't really use that in a crowded city when you're not fighting an Endbringer. You know, you can't block a shot from a cape and just be like, I'm gonna shear everything apart. So sadly, Revel does not get to revel in her power very often. But this is one of those moments. Arbiter, as I had said, very cool that we learn about her extra power that we didn't even know about, this language learning power, which I think is like it's like, it would be cool to have a character who knows every language in a way, but this is somehow more interesting to me. I can't put my finger on it, and I have been trying to, but for some reason the fact that she starts off the situation not knowing the language and then learns their dialect from them is really cool. And then Rhyme, we get to see Rhyme blasting. Let me see here. I found Rhyme casting wave after wave of crystals at Behemoth. He was using shockwaves to fire to prematurely detonate or push away Revel's spheres, and Rhyme's attacks were suffering from a similar angle. So yeah, she's just like totally icing the motherfucker. I felt like there was another point where Rhyme was trying to freeze a building, but I'm not finding it right now. Oh yeah, here it is. She was fighting again, trying to freeze the building so Behemoth was encased. Yeah, they're all going all out, and it's just really cool to see. I love it. The Endbringer chapters are great for Powers crap. But you know, I think the final thing we got to talk about on Powers stuffs is this time bomb. Actually, I should talk about the teleporter for a second. I think him breaching the Manton effect is a very scary like attack dog to be on beck and call. Like, it's like if Oni Lee could do that same thing. This guy seems to have zero compunctions about auto killing people, you know. And you know, if he found someone who could survive having their heart pierced through or whatever, he could still just do the same thing but to your face. So but yes, Fierce's discs. He can go back in time. And apparently, as we'll, learn, he can send like people or objects back in time, which is like pretty crazy powerful. But he had the idea that if he just sends directed light from one portal into another, and then has the exit portal aim at the entrance portal, then he could create like an infinite loop, and he's been doing it for like 3 days. So apparently it's built up like a crazy amount of energy and is just going to be like an ultra cannon of pure energy. And so we'll see what happens. That will be sort of the linchpin of the next couple chapters here. Maybe just the next chapter. Either way. But moving on out of this world building section, I should also say for world building, it was like I said, kind of interesting to see just almost immediately. There's 2 underground complexes. They didn't know where the other people were, but assumedly if you're going around searching conspicuously, then the teleporting guy would murderize you. So that's how they keep from... Unknown defenses is how they keep each other from searching too hard. So... yeah. Powers, knowledge, world building over with. Audience participation. I don't think there's any answers for it. But is there a moment in Parahumans that you find more bananas than he's pregnant with his dead teammates? And my answer is in Ward, yes. In Worm, no. I think this is the most craziest line in Worm to me. I kind of hoped other people would have moments that they thought were really crazy too, but no such luck. All right, let me try and think off the top of my head. Nothing really crazy in Arc 1, nothing really crazy in Arc 2. I think the closest that I can think of is when she thinks to herself in Arc 20 that Greg might have really off-the-wall news that he's eaten her hair and is pregnant with her baby. I think that's possibly the most bonkers thing that's said in the whole book. But it's got to be one of those two. Yeah. All right. And then the question for next time is, who's your favorite Dark Horse character in Parahumans? And if people don't know what a Dark Horse character is, it's a character with few scenes who left a big impression. Nice. Greg says, I think you mean Gregnant. Yeah, he's Gregnant with her baby. You know what? I'm just going to include that parenthetical about character with include this parenthetical in the question. Boop. All right. Question asked. Yeah, I guess that is all. Gonna do the outro. Let the music do its full thing, even with the really upbeat intro thing. Oh, we got an answer already on the question for favorite Dark Horse character. That's fun. I guess that means I've finally asked a good one. So, the song that I have just begun playing now is Crushed by ScarlettXOX. You can find her at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server can be found at the link in the description and the channel description. I don't know why I always think to myself when I'm going to say a link and I'm like, no, it's insane. It's just a garbled string of characters. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Yeah! So, yeah, that's it for this week. 24.3. Greg says cheers for the stream. Yeah, cheers as well, Greg. I'll see peoples next time for 24.3.